and translation management is something that came up half year ago. We started to work on this. This topic is about the pain and the efficiency you probably would like to have, and the general manageability of translation processes. And so the target audience, so who should like translation management, is not only developers, but also customers, managers, whoever is involved in the translation process. And it's generally what the module tries to cover is try to, oops, it's gone. Should I switch? Is it working? Test, test. Is this working? Test. Test. Yeah, it works again. Okay. So basically, we try to get back to the simplicity to help you to make the translation process simple, so that customers don't need to cover or understand the complexity of the translation stuff we all need to care as a developer. I'm actually we cannot change the complexity of the whole Drupal system, so this is some layer on top of everything to get everything together and introduce simplicity whoever works through this system. And let's have a short look at a general, typical multilingual project and interaction with the client. Usually, this visualization is about the client and how he starts to understand that the project contains complexity. And during this process, basically the client might be less available for you. So at the start, he starts to understand that the whole specification of the project is more complex than he intended. Then the implementation starts. Possibly there will be some changes to the project. And it takes for every cycle, it takes more time for the client to participate to the project. And once you reach at the end, I mean, the content phase, he starts to realize that it takes more time to create content than expected. And once you are at translation, the client finally has almost no time to participate in translation. And many projects get stuck at this point. Our main reasons for this situation that the translation, actually the translation phase of projects finally delayed somehow projects, is that either the content has not been ready or that, as said, underestimation of work, change requests, the client feels he cannot work with the system, and at the end also the amount of work needed to involve translators. So if the client wants his own translators to participate, they don't like to work with the system, or someone needs to do a lot of copy-paste work to copy content sent to the translators and somehow bring it back into the system. And also the one general question which is not being answered by Drupal out of the box is, where are we standing at the whole translation process? How much work is remaining? What needs to be translated in order to make this project feature complete? And if we try to do parallel translation, which means during the phase where the content is being created, you get other problems. Even if you might think, well, this helps to speed up the whole process, you need to keep track of what has changed, and every content might change a little bit, and translations might be outdated, and there are some tasks that need to be then translated again, so we lose a little bit of efficiency, and the costs are actually higher if documents need to be translated multiple times by a translator. So we don't know in most situations if you're platform has hundreds of nodes, you will lose overview on what sentence changed on what document and how to remember that this sentence need to be retranslated again. And yes, this is basically also about revisioning. Now, the topic how we can approach that, how can we solve that, is, in my opinion, this is a human problem for sure, for their participation, but the technical, finally it's a technical problem introduced by the platform, so the humans cannot work with the tools they have, and so this is actually the source of the issue. So let's try to have a look at what needs to be translated in Drupal, and if you once have been working with Drupal, you know that translation sources, so whatever needs to be translated or should be translated, is spread across the whole system. So customers usually only care about content once the project is live, but there is a lot more possible sources like strings, localization, possibly also variables containing emails you send out, and the whole menu system. So before introducing this project, you need to consider multiple user interfaces, you have different workflows, and there is no global overview on what should be translated in the whole platform. Also, the user interfaces have quite some limitations. This is a Translate tab, where you start to create a translation for nodes. This is the Translate interface, where you see whatever you have in translated or untranslated state. And there are more. I could show the menu system. It's spread across everything. And if you try to cover this, I have created a list of issues or things that need to be covered as complexity drivers. First of all, people want to have workflows. They want to know whether their specific work is done or not with nodes, for example. Then you need to introduce revisions, like to understand what changed or what didn't change in between a situation where you started the translation. If the content source changes, general multilingual stuff is adding complexity. You have this module source, the multiple sources, so translations can come from everywhere. Then you have the intention that either translation jobs, if I introduce this term, can be done by a local translator, or you might want to delegate this to an external provider. And there are many providers worldwide, and we want to help them come in. So we need to cover a lot of different providers. General, we want to have this module the Drupal way, so pluggable, extensible, and not just a simple limited module. We want to have unified user interfaces. We want to introduce this overview. We want to have management for the moderation of this process. And we want to have something like queues to understand where those different jobs and tasks are. Now, we tried originally to build on whatever is available, and tried with Workbench module, Node queue, whatever, to build such a solution to avoid to rebuild everything, to reinvent the wheel, actually. But we ended up in too many issues. Let's say like Workbench would only be able to cover nodes because it doesn't support other sources. And there are tons of discussions were happening in January when we tried to define the architecture. Yeah, those are the points. Then, I mean, we didn't want to change the scope of of the whole project to re-implement, let's say, Workbench, to make it support more than nodes, because this would change the whole scope. We just wanted to have something that works as soon as possible to cover those processes. And we also didn't want to change core because of its limitations. We don't want to wait for Drupal 8 or even 9. And this led us to a sprint in January where 25 developers from Europe, even the United States or Japan joined us. Developers also from example from the translation service providers to implement their plugins. And basically organizing a code sprint when starting from scratch with a new project is really hard to understand how to parallelize work. So if you already have a certain module at a certain point, you can split it up in different tasks and have people work on specific tasks then, and everyone has his own feature cycle, and you can merge this, as we see with a great example with the current core development. But if you introduce a completely new architecture, this is quite hard to get at a certain point where you can split up tasks and assign it to specific partial working groups, teams, or specific people. And we started from scratch, integrated with those modules we originally wanted to build on. So the approach generally is we build something that is specific to our translation management stuff, and we try to integrate with all those different modules we previously have been checking that might support the process. So we integrated these rules so you can set up automated rules how to deal with translation workflows, and we have view support to build the job queues and so on. This here is the fundamental concepts the translation management system introduces. So the job, generally it's all about the job in the heart of the system. Every job has sources. Sources might be nodes, might be every entity, might be translation, the localization strings, and all of those source elements can be caught, captured into a job, packaged as a job, and then the job is the fundamental object to be translated, which contains all those different items. And this job you can either translate locally or assign to an external service provider. So submit a job to, let's say, Microsoft. Microsoft immediately automatically translates the job and it comes back. And then you get the overview, what is in the job as source elements, such as the target elements. You do a review of this job. You can accept single items in this job or publish those. And at the end, let's say, accept the whole job. You could also moderate the job, so reject partial elements and ask for further translation. If this is a human service provider, this means that you can reject a single node. If the job contains 100 nodes, you can reject this single item and ask for retranslation, improvement in the interaction with the external translator. And at the end, once the job is confirmed, everything is, for example, published, and you actually never needed to copy, paste content, or you never lost structure. This is the same list again. This is the sources we have implemented. So sources can be nodes, entities, I18N strings, for example, localization strings, and variables. Still the sources, yes, the variables are not integrated yet. But we can implement as many plugins as we want to find sources that can be packaged into a job. And the job itself consists of items. It has itself a data storage, so the job knows what has been captured once. It stores a copy, and then the content of the job is, for example, passed to an external provider. So once the job comes back, we still know what we have submitted to them, because our local content might have changed within that time. So we still need to be able later on to compare, now, did we really translate the current version of the content, or is it possibly an outdated version already? And there's the global job queue to understand how many jobs are there and in what progress are they. Translators, pluggable. We have automated translator like Microsoft. We have human translation providers, whereas you will pay for translation. And the models of those translation providers are quite different. I come back to this for a short time. And you can even set up different settings per translator. So you have a translator is, let's say, it's the element, the translator itself is an entity. So you can create a translator which represents, for example, the external provider MyGengo. And then you can also copy this translator and have different settings assigned to this translator, like auto-accept. So you can, during creation of a job, you can assign it to MyGengo with the default settings as a translator, or you can assign it to MyGengo with, let's say, automatically predefined settings which auto-accepts the job. So we can capture with translators, with translator entities, like presets, how to deal with the translator, to avoid to define those settings per translator on every job basis if you create multiple jobs. 3 translation service providers joined our sprint, which is the MyGengo, Native and Supertext. And we implemented Microsoft Translator as an automated translator because it was free by then. Meanwhile, they changed their model, and you need to pay for the translation. Still, I have old credentials here, so I can show you this on the old version. But basically, we can also add support for Google Translate, which is also not free on the API basis. And just as a quick overview, MyGengo here is crowd-based, so they reply very fast. You can submit them sessions. You can submit them jobs, and you might expect an answer within hours if you ask for that. And they have a very low price because they start with, let's say, unqualified translators. There are also professional levels available. From what I know, I wasn't happy with the professional level. So still, it's not, I mean, it's not that level of professionality I would expect from professional translations or from professional translators, which should be native and so on. MyGengo is still a great start. Try it once, because you won't find, I would say, you won't find some cheaper translation service providers, but possibly if you deal with very advanced requirements on quality, it might not cover your needs. Then we have, for example, Native, an Austrian service provider that only focuses on human translation and says all of their translators are professional only, which means with the certificate they are only allowed to translate into their native language. And you are here, in this case, directly connected to a translator, so you know actually who is translating, and you can also assign further jobs to the same user. So it's somehow like a direct contact to that specific translator you learn to know and you're hopefully happy with. Yes, I could show you even more translation service providers with everyone. Every of those translation service providers is sure that they are only doing the right approach. So you can find really, let's say, 20 more, which are globally well known, and we are also in contact to add their support to the system. Yes, there is generally what you do if you submit a job to one of those translation service providers means you outsource the translation work. You don't care about who is going to translate yourself, and this means you pass the job to them, and once you come back, usually you review whatever they provide you because you pay for it, and I'm sure most of you will then review the translation you get in order to make sure that the quality is right. There might be bigger platforms with continuous content, whereas auto-accept of those submitted translations is right, but translation is actually quite expensive, and I mean, for most situations you want to do quality review of the jobs you created. At the end you accept the review, and then the translation is in. Yes, there are more available. Let me switch to a demo then. Are there any questions at the current situation?
What's the price of Google? Is it cost?
Sorry, the...
Google translate cost?
Yes, I don't know the exact price. They pay per, you pay per mega word somehow. So it's quite cheap, but still it's fully automated, so if you get money per word, it's quite an interesting business model for them, I think. I really have no idea. I didn't, yeah. Yep. Who? Okay, here we go. This is just a default Drupal installation, add a translation management on top of it, and we have two article to content items here. I'm going to show you the process in the user interface and those fundamentals, just using the content translation here. Let's first take the Drupal description text. If you go to the Translate tab of the node, then this system here introduces that those checkboxes here and the possibility to ask for a translation. Now what you see here is we have two pending jobs that came back already from a translation provider. So this is also what we added. So you can review the German translation of this content that has been provided. You will see here this is dummy. This is just the reply from a sandbox, so it's actually the same text prefixed with DE. To visualize, this will be the German translation if a human translator has been involved. So still, I'm going to accept this. You can see we can change the approved state per item if there might be many more items here. This here was the first was the body content, and every field has its own element here. And at the end, you can accept this job. And you see here below, you have also a log from what happened to this job. And once I close it, already you can see that this English article now has this German translation, which wasn't available before. So the system created the new translation, saved it, and that's it. And if you go back to this Translate tab, you will see that there is no more pending job, and the German stuff has been published. Let's do this with a new. Let's start with a new job, just with one item. I mean, with this content in it. What I can do is now let's try to take the MyGengo translation system. you see now it starts to load the per plugin specific settings. The job might have now this translation, the node I have chosen. A job might contain multiple lines here, but not if you create it with the node translate tab. Then MyGengo answers us. We've counted 291 words. We have seen before, if we choose here the Pro level, this will cost us 291 times 10 cents. Because we are now integrating against the sandbox, it doesn't need any real payment from us. Now I will just submit this to MyGengo. And yes, we have now here the job in progress. Let's switch over to MyGengo. You could do this with any external service provider we have integrated with. And here, the display might not be that perfect. I mean, the label here is a little bit broken. We are working on this. But generally, the job now contains of two fields, two parts to be translated. Those 288 and the 3 words, 291. The translator then will go in this platform to the translation interface. This is the development system, so I can just switch the translation state on the side of MyGengo. I just click through this stuff, and to simulate, the job came back then. So at the end, they send the job back to us. Now, dashboard. No, now it's changed from reviewable to awaiting translators. Yes, you see now it's reviewable, which means in MyGengo terms, the client, so you should check whatever they provide you. And we transport now this. I'm going to send this back. Yes, and now this French job is already back into our system because I just was simulating this translation interaction. So the French job now can be reviewed. Nothing changed because I didn't change the content of this stuff, and now we are at the same point which one I showed you before, so I can just accept this stuff and it is published. Now, if you like it more quick without that, wait a second. Yes, just as a quick example here, if I'm let's take this one, translate to Italian. I'm showing you now the amount of translation providers we have set up here already. I can play with, for example, Microsoft Translate and just send it to them. We have a feature called auto accept in the translation settings, so whatever comes back immediately passes through the review phase and it's just automatically published. It's loading. So if I send this to MyGingo auto accept, for example, once the translator here has finished his job, the content is automatically published. If I do this now with Microsoft, for example, I'm asking English to Italian for this node. And let me check if the auto accept feature is here enabled. Translation management. You will also see here now the settings, how the translators can be set up. Microsoft Translator, edit. Yes, here you can tell whenever a job comes back, automatically accept it. So we send it to the Microsoft Translator, submit to the translator, and the job already goes there, is being translated, comes back, is published, has been accepted, and that's it. So all of those 4 steps are done in one. And you see already here that we have an Italian translation, which is actually isn't that bad as a starting point if you want to improve it by yourself. So one specific workflow might be that you pass every new content that you want to translate possibly yourself, just automatically submit it to a Microsoft Translator, and once it comes back you improve it and make the quality human. Yes, generally this was the translation based on single items. Now let me delete, no, this here. Let me delete the Italian translation, and I just want to show you how to do this with views, with mass translations. So if we switch to the translation management interface, this is a summary of all of those jobs. What you see here is that every job has progress status. So with progress we mean that a job contains, in this case here, 2 nodes, and as an overview you understand here that if they are already translated, which means they are waiting for review for you, and here in this case, yes, I mean approved is it's complete. That's it. If you go down here, this job here, for example, there are 2 pending elements in it that has not been translated, has not been proved, and depending on if you deal with big jobs on the translation system, you will understand partial progress of the translation work. Let me show here the node. The mass translation, we can choose all content, request a translation for that. Those are rules. This is a views bulk operation view, so you can add this action wherever you like in your specific views. Yeah, they are packaged into a job. Now the job contains 2 items. As you see above, I can say I want to translate this into Italian. Again, I'm choosing Microsoft Translator because it immediately responds, and once I have submitted it, Microsoft will work on that. Everything comes back, is published, and done. So we have translated the site into Italian without further work. You might set up rules to automatically submit, to automatically create a job once you have a single content item added. So whoever is interacting with your site immediately creates a job, and this job can be passed to an external provider. So you have continuous jobs, continuous translation happening, possibly also a lot of cost happening without manual control. And yeah, basically any questions about the translation demo here, the site? Okay. Yes, this is if the demo doesn't work, some screenshots. Yes, the module also has quite advanced tests written because we simulate also external service providers. So our test integration has a mock-up for every external provider. So we have quite great test coverage for the translator, for the translation providers and the whole system. And yes, I mean, we are constantly improving it, but the quality should be quite fine for whatever is advanced in the process. There are still some specific points, like the user experience, we are constantly improving now. And there are also new features, like the per item recheck, and so the interaction with the translator to improve that moderation process. And as said, many new providers like Lingotech, 1 hour translation now started with known plugin as a provider, and so on. And there is even some crazy thing more. We realized that once we have the job system, once we have the fundamental elements here, we can also implement the service. So Drupal can not only create jobs, it can also receive jobs. And this is subject of the Google Summer of Code project from Fubi, Sebastian Simpson. And once we have this server, for example, a translation service provider can receive jobs in a Drupal, in his own Drupal system, from whatever platform, whatever Drupal site as a customer he's interacting with. So this is basically a system to start. I mean, you can build on this system then something like a translation service provider, because it's Drupal, because it's multi-user stuff. We could set up some system like MyGengo then, based on this translation management server, which receives jobs, can be assigned to users, and that's basically some next level of system to deal with. Yes, I was faster than the slides. The system works still. I think we could work for months on that, and we are constantly improving it, hopefully together with customers. And we have quite amazing response now, meanwhile, from all major service providers, which some of them lack plugin for Drupal. Others possibly already have started and now want to work with this system, possibly switch over to it, or have both at the same time. And yes, as the sprint initially, I mean, when 25 people joined, meanwhile there are still many people spread across the world and participate in this further development. The project, however, didn't reach some huge amount of real installations. Currently it's around 100, I think, which are using the system. So the whole deployment into real customer projects is still pending, let's say. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Which one was working?
I'm not sure. I just. It took
Hi.
It took 30 seconds.
Hi. Remember, it's going to be lunch in a quarter an hour. For those who are not hungry yet or want to go to the following sessions, remember that there will be another turn at 1 o'clock for dinner, for lunch, sorry.